Spirit of God in the clear running water, blowing to greatness the trees on the hill. Blow, blow, blow till I feel the breath of the Spirit blowing in me.
Welcome. You're watching Spirit of Life. Norm Currie is my name. In this episode, we'll be featuring material which I recorded some 18 months ago for an online project titled Love Dialogues. This interview is with Sister Corrie Bosch, who's a Missionary Sister of Service. Corrie, thanks for coming in again on this issue.
Thanks, Norm.
Hope.
Hope. Yes, when you told me we were going to talk about hope, I think, what can I say about hope? Because it's not an easy thing to describe, and yet I would say that hope is part of the tenure of my life, I guess. It's something that supports the focus of my life. It's different from optimism. I think hope for me has, and particularly I think I'm aware of it when I'm hitting a low spot or some dark times.
Yep.
And I realise that, this might be tough, but in the end, all will come well because someone is guiding all this. You know, this is part of my growth. This is part of my learning.
Yeah.
And so instead of just dropping my bundle and thinking, what's the use? I might be tempted to do that sometimes.
Yes.
Sure, sometimes I think, do I really want to deal with all this stuff?
No.
But because of the hope particularly, is knowing that in the end, this all serves its own purpose.
Yeah.
And all will be well. This is a phrase from Julian of Norwich that often gets quoted. But I think she saw this. She lived in a time of pandemic. It was the time of the Black Death.
Yes.
And it came in waves over 100 years. So all through her life, they never knew when the next lot was coming. And yet she had this amazing sense of hope and positivity, being able to see the goodness of things and of people, even in the darkest times.
Yes.
Because she just knew, with a deep sense of trust, in the more than themselves. Now, if it relied on me, I mean, there wouldn't be any hope, I tell you. But in a sense, I suppose I could say it's God, but I'm not terribly conscious that it's God that gives it to me, but it's just that there's a focus, it's leading somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's in safe hands.
Yeah.
Whatever that might be, however difficult it might look at this time.
Yeah.
So it does give me a sense of trust in life and in what life brings.
So when you were just going back to last time we spoke, you were talking about being out in the wide open spaces in central New South Wales. Were there examples from there that being stuck on the road or something, watching hope, maybe a drought and the farmers always having hope that rain will be tomorrow? Have you seen any examples of hope being practiced there?
Oh, when you think of those sorts of things, like New South Wales or Queensland, South Australia, droughts are a regular thing. But then when it rains, it's like you're watching a miracle. It's almost, as you watch, you can see the seeds. The country gradually grows from green, from red to green. And the greenest green, I don't know whether it's because I hadn't seen green for a long time, but it's the greenest green.
Yeah.
And then within 2 or 3 weeks, the country is a mass of wildflowers.
Yeah.
And the water birds come back.
Yes.
You think, how do they know? Right, so it's like there is something happening in the bigger reality of our world.
Yeah. It's sort of, I suppose, in a way, your hope builds on memory of the fact that those things happen, that even though it looks dark or it looks dry or whatever, you have the memory of the fact that it's not always like that it does come back.
Yes, and yet I think hope is more than that.
Mm-hmm.
When I listened to Tien's conversation with you on this subject, he said hope's like your soul.
Mm.
And I thought, yeah, maybe it is a bit like that. It's like a presence that colours the way I look at life, the way I look at situations.
Mm.
And sometimes I think that it's people who have the hardest times that know hope more than anybody else.
Yeah.
I've met people when they're just struggling in poverty.
Yes.
And yet they have a simple joy or something. It's hard to actually say what it is. It's not saying that they aren't unhappy in their situation, but there is another level. And not everybody, of course, not all poor people are like that. But I have met them and it just remarkably, for me, noted this sense of, there's a trust that in the end they will be okay, despite the hardship and the pain and the suffering.
Yeah. Is that always built on a religious belief, or is it beyond that?
For me it is, of course, because that's what I've grown up with and that's what I live. But I think in a sense it probably always is, but it may not be a religion as such.
No.
I think there is a deep religious sense, maybe it's not the right word, maybe a sense of the sacred, a sense of the more.
Yeah, yep.
And the more is not just having more, but it's like a presence that is sustaining, that carries us through where nothing else will.
Yeah. Corrie, thank you very much. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. We continue with Sister Corrie van den Bosch. Now we've spoken about love and we've spoken about hope. Let's talk about forgiveness. Your experience of forgiveness, either in your own life or in your experience as a sister.
When you said in your introduction about unconditional love, relating with unconditional love.
Yes.
I think perhaps forgiveness comes closest to an expression of unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I think in my own life, when I have felt forgiven, I've felt enormously freed, set free.
Yeah.
And while I can't forgive, it doesn't really affect the person I'm not forgiving.
No.
But it affects me.
That's right.
And I've seen firsthand that my earliest years were war years. And towards the end of the war, my father felt very betrayed by someone who was working in the underground resistance with him.
Yes.
And I don't know that he could ever let that go.
Yeah.
And, you'd think it was all gone, but the war was a taboo subject. And in a sense, it was like some kind of bitter sore that he carried all his life.
Yeah.
And that grieves me because I think if you could just let it go, the person that was responsible for whatever happened doesn't know.
No.
But for my dad, it would have made all the difference could he have let it go.
Yeah.
So that was a real grief for me just to see
Yeah.
that in his life. But also, I mean, having been forgiven myself, that sense, you know, as a child, some of the misdemeanors you get up as a child, you kind of feel as if you got the whole burden of guilt on you.
That's right.
And then to
Yes.
hear
Yeah.
the word of forgiveness,
Yeah.
and you kind of feel you can fly,
Yes. Yes.
you know,
Yes.
because suddenly you're set free.
Yeah.
And I've seen this over and over again in my life, both for myself and for others. And I suppose particularly working with wounded people, and many of the clients that I saw in my counselling practice were people who had been sexually abused as youngsters,
Yeah.
either in their childhood or in their teens. And then they come to midlife and all this comes bounding back on them.
Yes.
And it would bring up the rage and the sense of I'm no good, I'm used goods, and they had all this negative stuff around themselves.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it was like they carried the blame. And I can remember, you have to be very delicate about how you say it, but I remember saying to one woman, you know, you can never be healed of this until you come to forgive. And with that, she gave me all hell. How could I be expected to forgive? I said, look,
That's right. Yes.
you can't. I can't expect it, and I'm not asking you, but I'm just telling you that that's something you have to come to in yourself and to desire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the time came when she did. And the person who had abused her had long since died, but she wanted to do a ritual.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
And to see the transformation in that woman when she had truly forgiven and expressed this
Yeah.
in a ritual.
Yeah.
And she said to the guy who was dead, you're free. But she was also
She
free.
was free. Yeah.
Because she set herself free,
Yeah.
she could set him free. Right? It's very powerful. And I think I came to realize that forgiveness is perhaps the one most important thing in all relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
No matter whether the thing between you and me is small or large, until we come to a moment of forgiveness.
Forgiveness, yeah.
And you know, it's not saying that the person who abused me or whatever happened was right.
No.
Forgiveness is not about that.
No.
But forgiveness is about letting go the need for revenge, for payback, for blaming, for scapegoating. You know, our society is a taskmaster at this.
Full of it.
Anything happens, we're looking for a scapegoat. Somebody to blame. No, let's just look at it from a different perspective.
Yes. Yes.
Because only forgiveness. But we can't just say, I forgive you.
No.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
We actually have to allow ourselves to feel the depth of the hurt that we have suffered or we have perpetrated.
Yeah.
Because often, you know, we are part of a dynamic as well.
Yes.
And then we can come to some level of compassion for ourselves and for the other. There's always a story behind the bad things that people do to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a compassion that's part of forgiveness. But it's also compassion for yourself.
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
It's
And
necessary.
also to be at ease in your own vulnerability.
Yes.
You know, because we learn to put up this armour over our suffering, over our pain.
Yes.
And pretend to the world we're all right.
The interesting thing about armour is you can't get in and you can't get out.
Exactly.
And that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Once you do that forgiving, then the armour falls away, and the true self is able to move out and be whatever you're going to be in the world, in your love.
Yeah.
You can't be your love in the world if you have got armour on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I think forgiveness is the most healing thing of all the different things that we try to do to heal.
Yeah.
It heals the soul, it heals the psyche, and it can heal the body to some extent as well.
Till I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me. Blow, till I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Welcome back to Spirit of Life. We continue with Sister Corrie van den Bosch. Now, we've spoken before, and we've spoken about love, and we've spoken about hope and forgiveness. In that line, gratitude seems to be up there as well. Can we have a talk about gratitude from your life and your life experience?
We certainly can, because I think, can you imagine life without gratitude? It'd be pretty miserable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no.
And I think gratitude is what brings joy into life.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't start with gratitude. It starts with appreciation.
Okay, yeah.
Because if I really notice the sort of things and events and people that give me gratitude, then gratitude follows. But so often we can take things for granted and we miss the clues.
Yes.
You know, I wake up every morning, have done now for quite a number of years, and my first thought is, thank God I've got another day of life.
Yep.
And in a sense, it's that gratitude that colours my day. You know, I mean, there's so much you can say about gratitude that you think, where do I start? Because I think we live in an amazing world.
Yeah.
And the people who are part of our lives are amazing people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they might be fumblers and bumblers and they might make mistakes. They will make mistakes just like I do. But sometimes that's all we see.
Yeah.
But you look a little deeper and you see that the amazing beauty of a person.
Yeah.
And you know, you watch, I go for a walk every morning, early in the morning, and lots of people walk their dogs.
Yeah.
And one woman I know, she walks her dog and she's got a little dog who's quite old and lame. So, you know, the walk goes very slowly. But before she walks her dog, if I'm early enough, she does the same route, jogging by herself.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yes.
So I look at that and I think, here's this woman, she loves to run, but she's got this little dog. And she walks at the little dog's pace.
Yeah.
Which was a little bit of a limp and so on, because the poor little thing is getting old and arthritic, but it still likes to go for a walk.
Yeah.
You know, and I look at that and I get so much joy out of seeing it.
Yeah.
And so I say thank you. Yeah. You know, it's often the little things in life. The big things, of course, we say thank you for them. But the little things.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story, and I think something you opened up with is appreciation, and you just casually said, but we miss the cues. And that's what we're addressing here, isn't it? The cues are maybe very subtle, but they're a cue of appreciation for something which then moves into gratitude. So there's another step in the pathway, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last year when we had this long period of lockdown here in Melbourne, and you didn't go out of the house except to do your walk or to go and get some food at the shops. And all the children's playgrounds in the public parks were closed.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that time, the playgrounds were opened. And I went for my walk, and I hear children's voices.
Yes, yes.
And my heart just sang. And I think, I haven't heard children excited like this for a long time.
Yeah.
What a beautiful sound.
Yeah.
And so again, you feel this sense of, you appreciate it. I let it touch me. It did touch me. It lifted me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the response is gratitude.
Yeah. So,
And with that comes joy.
and to get it, you have to be open. You have to be open to the sensation, the sound, the perfume, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you walk past a flower, the colour maybe, but also the perfume strikes you, you appreciate that, and then inflows this gratitude for being alive. So it's a very cyclical process, but appreciation, as you pointed out earlier, is the first step.
Yes, and you know, you mentioned flowers. When you said that, I immediately got a picture of my father. He was a market gardener, so he was always out growing vegetables and stuff. And when he retired, somebody gave him an orchid, a cymbidium. He fell in love with orchids.
Ah, yes, yes.
So he started to grow orchids, and he ended up with lots of them in a glass house. And here he was well into his 80s, probably in his 90s by then. Every day he'd still go down to the glass house. And if I was home for a visit, I'd go down and call him for lunch or morning tea. And it was not unusual to find him standing in front of one of his orchids, just looking. And he was very deaf, so he never heard me come in. And I'd walk up to him until he saw me, and then he'd look up and he'd say, just look at that. Heart-stopping beauties.
Ah, yes.
Right?
Yes, yes, yes,
So,
yes, yes.
like for him, it wasn't a glass house full of orchids. It was this particular orchid or that particular orchid.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like paying attention to individual things rather than seeing things en masse.
Another important word or action, paying attention.
Yes.
Letting nothing slip you by.
Yeah, yeah.
So that gratitude sits at the foundation for, in a way, and you alluded to this to start with, it's the foundation of joy, it's the foundation of the joy of being alive, is to appreciate, to be open, to focus and yet be open, and to bring that into and gratitude.
And it nurtures that relationship.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know,
yes.
and I find that even just in our conversation, there's something about you creating the space for me to remember and to recall, but that in itself feeds my joy and my gratitude and my appreciation.
Yes.
And it creates a relationship with yourself.
That's right. Thanks, Corrie.
Thank you, Norm.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us again next week. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.